So yesterday, or the first worksheet, you've had practice naming chains of carbons. The longest chain gets to be the parent chain. What happens if there's an oxygen group on there? So you're going to change the very last letter from the E and you're going to put a new ending on all of these. That's what these functional groups are going to have, is a new last couple letters. If it's just an OH group, that's where the alcohols come from. So 2 carbons long with an OH group in there somewhere is the drinking alcohol that we have. It's called ethanol. Ethane is the name of the parent chain, 2 carbons, and it's got an OH on it. Now, it doesn't need a number in this case because it's on the first carbon. You always start counting so that the oxygen group gets the smallest number. So it's 1 ethanol, but it can't be anything but 1 ethanol. Here's a good example of antifreeze. Usually that same compound that looks just like drinking alcohol, but it's got an extra OH. People say it's sweeter that do drink it. I can't imagine it's got to be even worse for you. I don't know what it breaks down into, and I'm sure it's somewhat poisonous. But it's 1,2-ethanediol, meaning on the first and second carbon there's 2 OHs. That has to be different because there could be, both OHs could be on the 1, which would be 1, 1. But ethanediol is what we use in the antifreeze in your car to keep it from freezing in the winter. Water loves that, and so it keeps it in a matrix and keeps that from freezing like a block and breaking your radiator. 1,2,3 propanediol is what we call glycerin, and glycerin is a key component in soap or fats. It's also how we store fat in it. We use that with a bunch of long molecules that attach there. So that's one way we store fat is with glycerin, basically. Now, ethers. Ethers are also, notice, a single oxygen, single bonded oxygen, but they've got, instead of H on one side, they've got carbon chains. And that's actually easy because then you just name the 2 carbon chains on the oxygen like side chains. What we're going to see here is there's 1 carbon chain and a 2 carbon chain. C2H5 is even a little more condensed structurally. It's C2H2, CH2 and CH3 basically together. So get used to seeing that a little bit. So that's an ethyl. That comes first because it's alphabetically first, and then the methyl is second. That's alphabetically second. So ethyl methyl ether. Very flammable, very volatile. It is something we can use for anesthetic, but the dimethyl ether, where it was 2 ethyls. This one, diethyl ether, where it's 2 carbons on one side, 2 carbons on the other, where 2 ethyl chains. That's the anesthetic that was the most popular because it didn't evaporate quite as much, and it was a little more easy to control. Some of these evaporated too much, and it would cause death because you put them in too deep a sleep. So notice, if there's 2 ethyl groups, 2 carbon chains, 2 carbon chains, that's diethyl. 2 1 carbon chains, dimethyl, or a methyl ethyl. So you name the carbon chains as they are showing up. Okay, that's enough for this because that finishes out the worksheet for today, and then we'll go into these other 2 in just a second on the next sheet.